host, Oprah.
Monday at 4 on Northwest News Channel 8.
From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
Our issues this Sunday, Monica Lewinsky is back in the headlines. Did we learn anything new about the behavior of Bill Clinton or the conduct of Ken Starr? Or is this just all about remaking her image and mass marketing? With us, the author of Monica's new book, Andrew Morton, and the writer of tomorrow's Time magazine cover story, Michael Duffy. Then this.
This coming Sunday, I'm going to announce the formation of exploratory committee to determine whether or not I should seek the presidency.
Today, Texas Governor George W. Bush will move closer to a presidential run as a compassionate conservative. Former Tennessee Governor Lamar Alexander says those are weasel words. We'll ask him why. And in our political roundtable, Bradley and Buchanan in New Hampshire, Elizabeth Dole poised to run, and Hillary storms New York. What standards will the media use to cover these campaigns? With us, David Broder of the Washington Post, Fred Barnes of the Weekly Standard, and Wayne Slater, the Austin, Texas bureau chief of the Dallas Morning News. But first, the New York Times says there has been a major breach of our national security. China has stolen nuclear secrets from the Los Alamos lab in New Mexico. The Washington Post confirms a lab employee has flunked a lie detector test. The stolen secrets have dramatically helped China develop nuclear weapons. The Clinton administration's response was described as plagued by delays, inaction, and skepticism. Joining us now is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Richard Shelby. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tim.
Senator Shelby, Paul Redman, the former CIA spy hunter, says that this case is worse than Aldrich Ames, the spy who sold secrets to the Soviet Union, and as bad as the Rosenbergs, when the Rosenbergs stole nuclear secrets before World War II. If, in fact, these charges, allegations are true, how serious is this?
If, in fact, is to use your words, that these allegations are true, it's very, very serious. It's probably the worst breach that we've had in many, many years.
Do you have any evidence of other Chinese espionage going on over the last few years?
Well, Tim, in America today, there's a lot of lax attitudes toward national security in our labs everywhere and other places too. A lot of people believe since the demise of the Soviet Union that we don't have threats anymore, which is wrong. I believe myself, as a matter of fact, I know as chairman of the committee that the attitude of too much openness is not paying off for us. It's paying off for countries like China and others in the world who are continuing to try to get our secrets and obviously are getting some.
As chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Shelby, what will you do about these latest revelations?
Well, what we've been doing, first of all, I will certainly have hearings on those revelations or allegations, you might say, at this point. But I want to tell you this, Tim. The Intelligence Committee in the Senate and the Intelligence Committee in the House, headed by Congressman Porter Goss, we have been on top of this lax security for a number of years. We've been pushing, we've been prodding the administration to do more, to tighten up security. I think they're beginning to, but it's been a long time. They've waited a long time. They could have done more. They could have done more immediately. This is an immediate problem. This isn't a problem you can put off for 6 months or a year. It will damage, if it hasn't already damaged, our national security in a big, big way.
How soon will you have hearings?
As soon as we can schedule them, when we get back, we will share this with our committee. I'll be back in Washington tomorrow, and we'll go from there.
Now, the Chief of Intelligence for the Department of Energy says that he was ordered last year not to tell Congress about this because there was concern that critics would use this information to criticize the Clinton administration policy of engagement towards China.
If that is true, this would be very bad news and bad policy, moreover. I hope that this is not true, but we will have the gentleman before the committee, and we'll have him under oath. We'll find out what's going on here as far as the exact step-by-step allocations. But I can tell you, Tim, the attitude of lax security is going to do more damage to our national security than what we see in these newspaper articles and on your TV this morning.
The New York Times uses the word, Senator, delays, inaction, and skepticism. And there are suggestions that the administration's concern about the investigation into campaign money being funneled from the Chinese into the Clinton-Gore campaign may have, in fact, been one of the reasons why the administration was so concerned in keeping this quiet or not pursuing it aggressively. That's a very serious political charge. Do you think there's any truth to it?
I hope there's no truth to it, because it is a serious charge, one of the most serious, dealing with espionage, dealing with campaign contributions, dealing with possible looking the other way. I hope this has not happened, but I can tell you, you know that we have an ongoing investigation in the Senate Intelligence Committee dealing with the transfer of technology to China and also dealing with some of the contributions. It is similar in some ways, but perhaps different from the Cox Committee's report and investigation. We'll be coming out with that soon, and that will be very interesting to see and read about.
Why didn't the American people know about this sooner? The secrets were stolen in the late 80s. The administration knew about this nearly 2 years ago. Why was this held from the American people?
Well, Tim, I can't answer that question straight up. I'm not part of the administration, but that's a good question, because I think immediacy, doing something about a breach of security now and not delaying it, is what security is all about. And we'll get behind it, we'll get into it, and we will share what we can with you and the American people.
Next month, the Chinese premier is scheduled to visit Washington. What should be the message to him from the president?
Well, I think the message should be, we want to engage you, we want to trade with you, but we're not going to look the other way if you're going to conduct espionage in this country. We're not going to look the other way and let you have a lot of our technology any way you can get it that will do real damage to our national security now or in the future, help you immediately. I think that's the message we should send.
Do you believe that this revelation will affect the congressional vote on whether to allow China into the World Trade Organization?
I don't know if it will affect the vote, but I'll tell you, it's time we look with a real close eye on what China is doing in the U.S. as far as acquiring our technology any way it can.
Senator Richard Shelby, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be covering your hearings. Coming next, another big story this week. Monica Lewinsky speaks out. We'll talk to the author of her new book, Andrew Morton. And Time Magazine's Michael Duffy interviewed her this very week. All coming up on Meet the Press.
Meet the Press is sponsored by GE. Online at www.ge.com. GE, we bring good things to life. And ADM, supermarket to the world.
Presenting the remarkably innovative GE Profile Performance range with a revolutionary bridge that connects burners so you can cook any size dish. And its true temp oven is the most accurate in America, so you can also bake and broil like a gourmet. It's so versatile you could get carried away.
Dad, I usually just have cereal for breakfast.
The incredible Profile Performance range, only from GE.
I think life is made of promises. You need them when you're little, and you rely on them all your life. Promises are how we tell each other that we care. They don't really have a beginning or an end. They're forever.
For more than 145 years, people across America have relied on Mass Mutual for life insurance and financial security. Mass Mutual, the blue chip company. We help you keep your promises.
What will it take to build this company?
To get ready for prime time on the web.
How can we do everything a little faster? Okay, a lot faster.
When they're looking for answers, more CIOs, more MIS managers, more people look to Compaq than to any other computer company in the world.
Limits? What limits?
Compaq. Better answers.
The following is a commercial message from the Archer Daniels Midland Company.
The Warsaw Pact and NATO, mankind striving for military security. Even when we are all militarily secure, hunger persists. What about global food security? Well-fed countries like ours may forget that we enjoy abundant, affordable food, but the world's hungry people have abandoned their homelands, even surrendered their freedom, in a quest for food. Probably we'll always have maps and borders to divide us, but when it comes to feeding the hungry, shouldn't we think of a world without borders? We have heard the warnings. If we haven't, our children will. The warnings from those who believe that hunger, simple hunger, could become the global security issue of the 21st century. Shouldn't everyone have the right to enough to eat? Think about it.
To prepare for world food demands, ADM doubles capacity every 5 years. We're not just thinking about how to feed the world, we're working to make it happen.
These last 3 weeks, Washington seemed at last to be a Monica-free zone. That all changed dramatically this week with the Barbara Walters interview and the release of this book, Monica's Story. With us, author Andrew Morton, and the man who interviewed Monica for this week's Time magazine cover story, their Washington bureau chief, Michael Duffy. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Good morning. Michael Duffy, you spent 3 hours with Monica Lewinsky on Friday. The result is this cover story in Time magazine. What's your take? What's the lead of your interview?
Well, I think what separates Monica Lewinsky, after meeting her for that long a time, from the rest of the country is, unlike those of us who think this was about, a national crisis, a constitutional test, maybe a political disaster, Monica Lewinsky still sees this really in the context of herself. This is about her. It's a personal crisis. And every way you come at it, did you think about what this would do to the country? Did you think about what this would do to the administration? She says, no, I really wasn't thinking about that. When you ask her, do you really think this was nobody's business but your own? She says, well, yeah, this affair pretty much happened on the weekends when we weren't doing our jobs. So, and she says, I'm not going to pretend, she says in the interview, I'm not going to pretend this was always about something bigger than us, or bigger than it was, because I didn't think that way.
Monica Lewinsky, a White House intern, has an affair with the President of the United States, and she appears to be devoid of any remorse as to what it put the country through, Andrew Morton.
I think she is regretful about what happened. She does take a degree of responsibility. She does think that the President should take a greater responsibility because he's the older man. But at the same time, she feels that ultimately, as she says in the book, she should have left it as an acted-upon fantasy, an unfulfilled flirtation, and left it at that, given the consequences both for her family, for the Clintons, and for the country.
One factual point, the President had said under oath that this relationship began as a friendship and evolved into sex. According to Monica's story, the very day he met her, they engaged in sex. It was hardly a friendship.
Yeah, well, take you back even earlier, when he saw her on the rope line for the first time, he said to her afterwards, I knew that I was going to kiss you. So there was this initial, intense sexual chemistry between them, a sexual chemistry which continued for well over 2 years.
Michael Duffy, Senator Joe Lieberman from Democrat from Connecticut says that when he listens to Monica, she has the same tone as if playing tennis or getting her hair done in talking about engaging the President of the United States.
Yeah, I think that was one of the startling things finally to hear her, not through a screen, not through a filter, not in somebody's tapes or redacted tapes. And the reason it's important actually to hear her finally, after all we've heard and all we've said, is not just to know what she was thinking, because, we've now heard plenty about that, but you do wonder after you meet her and you hear what she has to say, what was the President thinking? It's understandable. She's appealing, she's engaging, she's funny, she's fearless. I mean, she did call the President butthead. But, she's also self-absorbed, very innocent and completely unaware of the significance of what she was doing.
But this is the whole point. This would never have happened if she treated the President like the President of the United States. She treated him like a man, almost from the start. And this is the whole point about Monica. She has this extraordinary personality. There's no kind of moderator on her emotional accelerator, if you will. And you don't have books written about you, people discussing you, if you're an ordinary person. What's happened to her is that she saw the President as a man, and that's how this relationship evolved and
Did
matured.
Monica Lewinsky set out to seduce the President of the United States?
Far from it. When she first arrived in Washington, she couldn't understand what all the fuss was about. She said, the President's a guy with grey hair, a bulbous nose, rosy cheeks, didn't like him one bit. Then as soon as she saw him, she then understood what everyone in the White House, everyone in Washington was talking about.
And she seduced him?
No, she flirted with him, and he flirted with her. It was a mutual relationship. And this is the whole point about their relationship as well. It was a mutual obsession. It was an obsession on the President's part as much as it was an obsession on Monica's part. And now that the emotional landscape of Monica has been coloured in, a lot more, the hues and the shades of the President now need to be looked at. Because, remember, it's his judgment as well which comes under question in this whole affair as well.
The President's judgment, Michael Duffy. Does Monica Lewinsky have any views as to what may have happened to her but for the dress? Would there have been a White House campaign to try to demean her as a stalker or even worse?
I asked her, I said, do you have any idea what would have happened to you if you'd actually not kept the dress? Because she's, you know, we asked all these questions about looking back, would you have done things differently? And she said, yeah, I know they would have come at me really hard, but I'd still be standing. You know, I've been through worse. She's a tough, resilient person. I mean, I was surprised by how tough she is. But she says, I could have handled it.
Do you believe the White House would have gone after her but for the dress, Andrew Morton?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look at what happened when she was in room 1012, where she was in the thrall of Starr's prosecutors. She resisted them for 12 hours. She remained loyal to the President for all that time. She refused to betray him, to betray Vernon Jordan, to betray Betty Curry. And yet, within days of this scandal breaking, did the President show the same kind of loyalty to Monica Lewinsky? No. He threw her to the wolves. So I know who I'd like to be in the foxhole with. It's not President of the United States.
And looking back on what happened, and you ask her, you know, look about the job hunt. Do you think they were trying to buy your silence? No, they were just trying to do me a favor. You know, he liked me, so he tried. She sees no connection between what happened in December.
That the President of the United States and his top friends tried to find a job for any intern.
Right. It was just a coincidence that they were helping her sign a false affidavit at the same time that they were working behind other scenes.
Does she truly believe that?
She seems to absolutely think it. She says, look, you know, they were just doing me a favor. I don't see a... and she's got it, you know, down. She doesn't, you can come at it 5 different ways and she doesn't change her view of it.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I was just going to say, you've got to put this whole job search in the context. Remember, all her friends, her mother, her parents were trying to draw her away from Washington, to get her away from that because of the destructive nature of this relationship. So the job search was part of the whole, the bigger picture, trying to get her away from this obsession. And she was seeing jobs counselors. She'd applied for a job with Connie Chung herself on CBS. And yes, of course the President was involved, but he was just one weapon in her armory. Everyone else, half the world was looking for Monica a job.
Well, rather than seeing it as a conspiracy for silence, she says, no, in fact, the conspiracy was Linda Tripp's. She's the one who told me to have him call Vernon. She's the one who told me to, you know, have him look for this job or that job. She thinks that she was much more the pawn of a conspiracy by, you know, conservatives than she was by the President and his friends.
She also told Channel 4 in Great Britain that she believes she was a pawn of a right-wing conspiracy, when in fact she got her job through the offices of a Democratic fundraiser. Does she really believe there was a right-wing conspiracy and she was a pawn?
Yes, indeed, and the fact that, and I think that the whole conspiracy to entrap the President needs greater investigation as to how Linda Tripp, Lucianne Goldberg, and others worked together to draw Monica into their web and subsequently to entrap the President. I mean, this is what bemuses most people abroad. How can what is, after all, an office romance become an article of impeachment? And it seems to me that the whole movement towards entrapping the President was part of this conspiracy. And we talk about the job search. The turning moment for Monica to go find herself a job was on October the 6th, when Linda Tripp, who was part of this conspiracy, told her that there was a black mark against her in Washington, she would never get a job, and she'd heard from a friend of hers in the National Security Council. The friend, when she gave a deposition to the FBI, said that was a total lie. But that moment was the turning moment for Monica. Linda Tripp was part of that conspiracy. And the whole of the October, November, December of 1997 was Tripp and her cohorts trying to bring Monica into the Paula Jones case.
What one word would Monica Lewinsky use to describe Linda Tripp?
The devil incarnate.
Michael Duffy, did the president give the impression to Monica Lewinsky that he was willing or thinking about leaving the First Lady for her?
Well, she took that impression, but then I think she sees all kinds of things in signals that probably we wouldn't be able to read. I mean, she is a very, she can make something out of nothing, I think, fairly quickly. But when you ask Monica, maybe another way to ask the question, you know, what really was the bond between you two? She has a real hard time putting her finger on it. She can't really explain it, and apart from, you know, the physical relationship. And it's funny, even now, she says, well, we had some things in common, but, you know, we just clicked. It isn't something she can really point to and explain.
But in the book, there is a suggestion that the president gave her the impression that he would be with her when he left the White House.
Yes, there's this conversation which astonished her, never mind anyone else. That when she was with him in the Oval Office, he was talking about being alone in 3 years' time, and then she said, we'll make a good team, and then he said something like, well, I'll have to go pee 23 times a day or something. And that gave her the impression that he was implying that after he left office, he and the First Lady would divorce and that he would be free to be with her. Now, the problem for Monica now is that her instincts, which may have proved true at the time, have been so battered by the last year that she doesn't even believe her instincts anymore.
Bottom line, Monica Lewinsky is famous for one reason. What does it say about our culture that she's about to become a millionaire?
Well, this is what's happened this week is a carefully orchestrated rollout, you know, of a product. It's the book, you know. She's
I wish it was carefully,
you know.
orchestrated.
And she says that she needs the money because she won't be able to find a job for a long time. No one would begin to hire her.
Can I just make one point about all this, about people talking about how she's making money out of it? She wouldn't have to do these interviews if she didn't have these huge legal bills. And I just ask a general question. It's not just about Monica, it's about this whole process. That there's a lot of people around Washington now with huge legal bills, Betty Curry and so on, and they have no way of doing a book or doing an interview. And doesn't it say something about the process that you've been going through? That, for example, when Monica was called to see the House managers during the Senate impeachment hearings, it cost her some $15,000 in legal fees so that they could ask her a few questions. Now, why should the private citizen be funding a public process? And I think you should be debating that kind of issue rather than saying, well, Monica's making some money. She's making some money because she has to pay these bills as well.
Final thought, Michael Duffy, what did we learn from Monica Lewinsky in this whole saga?
You can go very far if you really apply yourself in Washington, but you have to be careful. She's a you know, person who I think in 6 weeks is probably going to find out, you know, that she has a regular life, that she's going to have a long time, a lot of trouble trying to put together. And she won't, we probably won't be here in a year talking, and that'll be a good thing about Monica Lewinsky.
Is this the last we're going to hear of Monica Lewinsky, Andrew Warren?
Not for the next few months, but certainly, I think the whole Monica saga will die down when the president leaves office.
That has to be the final word. Andrew Morton, Michael Duffy, thanks very much. Coming next, Texas Governor George W. Bush emerges as a frontrunner, but our guest, Lamar Alexander, warns the race is far from over. Our Meet the Contenders series, the race for the White House 2000, continues right after this.
They're hanging out on Hoyt Street in Brooklyn. They're killing time on the banks of the Mississippi. They're looking for something to do in the hollows of West Virginia. They're sitting right there in front of you, on a stoop in your own hometown. They're the kids the future of the world depends on. But they need safe places to play, help with their schoolwork, or just somebody to look up to. That's why GE employees and retirees have pledged to volunteer 1 million hours of their own time by the year 2000, a pledge that we intend to meet and surpass. So whether we find them in the alleys of the inner cities or the back lots of forgotten towns, one thing's for certain. Their future is in our hands, just as the world's future is in theirs.
I'm going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come.
Morocco,
Chicago. FedEx carries more express packages to more places than any other shipping company on the planet. Everywhere from Georgia to Barcelona. About the only thing we can't carry is a tune. FedEx. Be absolutely sure.
I've had an IRA account at Schwab for over 15 years now, and I use Schwab.com to manage it. I found it very easy to buy my no-load mutual funds through it, and I also look after the joint account for my wife and myself. I have a sister who prefer to have me manage her account, and I do that. And I use Schwab.com all the time. Makes it very efficient in terms of use of time. And I think they're all happy with the results.
In just 48 hours, Lamar Alexander will announce he's running for president. We'll find out why after this station break.
Tuesday, Jerry Seinfeld. Bob Costas talks to the funny man for the first time since the final episode.
That is a lie.
No, it's not. The Jerry Seinfeld interview, Tuesday on Today.
You think you know it all about your child's safety?
It's so scary that those door stoppers can kill a kid at any minute.
Watch the next Oprah.
Monday at 4 on Northwest News Channel 8.
This is a great time to refinance. Just ask Joe. He got a home loan that paid off his credit cards, saved him hundreds of dollars a month, and gave him extra money to finish the garage and rebuild the deck. For making payments on time, he'll get automatic rate reductions that save him even more. That's the Back on Track plan. It works for Joe. Just think what it could do for you.
The Money Store. 1-800-LOAN-YES.
News Channel 8 can also be seen on these local translators.
Lamar Alexander, welcome back to Meet the Press. Thank you, Tim. Who is Lamar Alexander, and why should he be president?
Well, I'm a son of teachers, a former governor, an education secretary, a parent, a Tennessean. What I intend to do as president are three things. One, I want to fix public education. Two, I want to lower taxes, especially on parents raising children. And three, I want to strengthen our defense, especially against terrorism. And more than anything else, I want to be a president on the side of parents raising children. That's where our biggest problems are today, with broken families, substandard schools. And if we could go into the new century as a country with the best parents and the best schools, that's the most important thing we could do.
Character has been discussed a lot over this last year and a half. Obviously, an important aspect of character is loyalty. When George W. Bush talked about being a compassionate conservative, Lamar Alexander spoke out. Let me put on the screen for you and for our viewers exactly what you said and get your reaction. Compassionate conservatives, for example, echoes a time not long ago when conservatives were told to be kinder, gentler Republicans. And remember what happened after we qualified our language? We began to qualify our principles. We accepted a tax increase violating the bedrock conservative principle of lower taxes and smaller government. And we soon found ourselves vacating the White House for the first time in 12 years. That's why I propose we begin the new century with a new resolution: no more weasel words. December 17th, 1990, George Bush appoints you Secretary of Education. And now, 9 years later, you criticize President Bush for gentler, kinder, and criticize his son for being compassionate conservative. Why?
Well, let's take both parts of that, Tim. First, I think I learned a lesson on that in terms of President Bush. I can't make even an indirect reference to him without seeming to show a lack of respect to him. I don't have an ounce of lack of respect for President Bush. So that's something I won't do.
So that was a mistake.
Well, that was something I won't do. But let me move on to the word compassionate conservative and weasel words. I don't back up an inch from that. Those are Teddy Roosevelt's words from the turn of the century. We can do better than be compassionate conservatives and Gore being a practical idealist and somebody else being a trustworthy liberal or a friendly moderate. I think the people will run hide under their beds if those are what the politicians come at them with. We need to define what we mean. Are we for a single-rate flat tax, or are we, as I am, for tripling the tax deduction for each child to $8,000? Are we for affirmative action based on need, as I am, or based on race? Are we for English for the children on the first day of school, or are we for federal bilingual education programs? I'm arguing for plain talk, not weasel words. And I'm right about that. I'm going to insist on that. When we fudge the issues as Republicans, we lose. When we create a choice, as we did in 1980 with Mr. Reagan and 1994 with our Republican Congress, we win. And I'd like to see us win in the first election of the new century.
Ronald Reagan said that the 11th commandment should be, do not criticize your fellow Republican opponents. Why won't you abide by the 11th commandment and stop criticizing George W. Bush?
Wait just a minute, Tim. Now, Ronald Reagan, you've been around longer than that. Ronald Reagan challenged a sitting Republican president in 1976. Ronald Reagan ran the most aggressive campaign on the issues of any Republican in a half century. I, of course, will never say a word personally about the other candidates. I was the only presidential candidate in 1996 who didn't run a negative television ad, but I'm going to run an aggressive campaign on the issues. Otherwise, we'll never fix schools, we'll never lower taxes, we'll never have the kind of country that we want.
Does George W. Bush have this nomination locked up?
Of course not. Of course not. He had, I think our party's reaching for the familiar. Bush and Dole are two of the most respected names in our party. But pretty soon it'll come all back down to earth. We'll all go to Iowa. 3 of us will come out of Iowa. I won a ticket out of Iowa on my own last time. With Governor Branstad's help, I'll be one of those 3. Then we'll go to New Hampshire. I came within 3,800 votes of beating Senator Dole in New Hampshire last time. I'll be one of those 2. Then we'll have a level playing field, and we'll see which one of us is the best prepared to be the President of the United States. And I hope to show that with my background, my different name, my different message, that I will be.
And joining me in the question today is David Broder of the Washington Post. David.
Governor, you told the California Republican Convention last weekend that Republicans shouldn't be fussing at each other about abortion, but should focus on the issue of education. So let's talk a little more about education. I think the NBC people will put this up, but let me quote it to you from February 28th of 1995. I would abolish the United States Department of Education and give you the responsibility for making the decisions for your children. Are you still in favor of abolishing the Department of Education?
David, I tried to do that and failed to do that. I'm still in favor of sending the bureaucrats home and sending the money right back to the classroom teachers, the local school boards, and the parents, and let them make the decision. So my tactic, my method would be to do just that, to send the money back home, perhaps increase federal funding for local schools if we could give the money to the parents in the form, say, of a Hope Scholarship for children, which would let them choose among the schools and let the teachers decide how to spend the money in each school.
Now, in some of your speeches, you proposed cutting the federal education bureaucracy in half. Give people a realistic idea of how many jobs that would affect.
Well, I hope it would be a lot over a period of time, David. Here's my goal.
Well, your old department has
about, when I was there, it had 4,000 or 5,000
It's now about 7,300.
Well, that's what happens when the Democrats get in.
And if you cut it in half, the savings would be roughly $250 million. You mentioned that you want to triple the tax deduction for each child to $8,000.
$8,000.
That would cost, according to the estimates I've been given, about $40 billion.
That is exactly right.
You're going to save $250 million, but you're going to spend $40 billion in tax deductions. How does that match up?
Well, David, we have a surplus. My first priority is to fix Social Security. That's generally agreed upon. And then we'll have about a 2 or 3% increase in spending, which I would have as a priority defense and education. And then my first priority for a tax cut would be to triple the tax deduction for each child to $8,000, make it worth what it used to be, make sure we don't discriminate against moms and dads who stay home to care for their kids. If there's money left over, then I would go to an across-the-board tax cut. My principal goal with education, I know it will save some money, I know it will reduce a few jobs, but my goal is to get the decisions out of Washington and back in the hands of the classroom teachers and the parents and the local school boards, and then lead a movement across this country to change teacher tenure, to support teachers who maintain discipline, and to pay good teachers more. We need a president who will transform the public schools, and our party has been timid about that nationally, and the Democrats are stuck with the people who want to keep schools the way they are.
You also propose, and I quote, making every school a charter school. Now, a charter school, as I understand it, is one where the teachers organize the school according to their own education theories.
That's right.
And so on. What does that role leave, or does it abolish local school boards or state boards of education?
It means they step back. Teachers and principals are suffocating in court orders, government rules, and union rules and regulations. What I propose to do is, over time, it might take 10 to 15 years, to help every public school have the same freedom from union rules, government regulations, and court orders that charter schools have. Then the teachers could make the decisions about those schools. The money would go to the parents. The parents would choose the school. The autonomous school, public schools, would decide how to spend the money. And we'd have the greatest lift-up in academic achievement in our nation's history.
Now, when you were Education Secretary, you proposed something called New World Standards for school, which you said would be backed up by, quote, American achievement tests.
Right.
That sounds to me like national standards and national tests.
Does sound like it. There's a fine line there, and I will admit I've been tempted by national tests before, but I'm not for them. I favor high standards. I believe the governors are on the right track with their Achieve program, working state by state to create the high standards. I like Bill Bennett's suggestion, for example, to the Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, that they create a Silicon Valley math test, and then the Nashville School Board can decide if our fourth graders are learning what the Silicon Valley scientists think fourth graders ought to know about math. I'm not for a Washington government-based test.
One other closely related question. I've heard you say that you were proud of the role you played in desegregating the Vanderbilt University Law School.
Yes, I was.
But now you support, on a national basis, the kind of thing that California voters did with Proposition 209, abolishing any kind of racial preferences or affirmative action. As you know, the effect of that in California has been to drastically reduce the number of African American and Latino students in the elite campuses of the University of California and in their graduate schools. How do you reconcile that position?
David, I made both those decisions, to desegregate Vanderbilt, to appoint the first black Supreme Court justice, and to, if you'll remember when I was Education Secretary, to say no college scholarships based solely on race. I made them all for the same reason. In this country, government action should never label anyone based on race. Affirmative action, the government's helping hand, should be for everyone, always based on need, never based on race. We should move beyond distinctions based on race. The best way to help a young person get into the University of California at Berkeley is give them a ticket to the best school, is to help strengthen their family so their parents can help them. That's why I focus on helping this country as we turn the century have the best parents and have the best schools. That will solve 90% of the problems that worry us the most.
Someone who has very controversial attitudes on race, David Duke. And you were asked about him in New Hampshire a month ago. Let me put on the screen for you, Governor, and for our viewers, a question from Paul Peter Jessup. Governor Alexander had a golden opportunity to show political backbone, and he didn't. There is no place in the party of Lincoln for David Duke. Governor Alexander needed to clearly state that David Duke is not a Republican. He failed to do so.
Well, that was at the Portsmouth Rotary Club, and I made myself absolutely clear about that. If I could find David Duke in a Republican primary, I would oppose him. If I could find him in a general election, I would oppose him. He stands for everything I'm against, period.
But
nothing. Period.
You don't mind the fact that David Duke's a Republican?
Of course I don't like it. He's not what I like, but how do you kick people out if there were a way to... I mean, this is a free country. We don't have admission procedures. I oppose David Duke. I oppose what he stands for. I don't want him in the Republican Party. If there were a way to kick him out, I would, but there's not.
Will you pledge that you will not raise taxes in any way, shape, or form if elected President of the United States?
I will pledge to lower taxes.
I don't want to get into these promises, Tim, but my goal as president is to lower taxes, to end the capital gains tax, to end the death tax, and to triple the tax deduction for parents raising children, then an across-the-board tax cut. So my whole goal will be to lower taxes. So no, I'm not going to raise the federal income tax. That's totally against the reason I'm running for president. When you were governor, you did raise the sales tax.
I raised some taxes, that's true, and I lowered some taxes. And we ended up with no income tax and the 5th lowest taxes, the fastest growing economy, some of the best schools, and today Tennessee has the lowest tax rates of any state. No debt on its highways, and I left it in pretty good shape.
Lamar Alexander, to be continued. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tim.
Coming next, our political roundtable with Fred Barnes of the Weekly Standard and Wayne Slater, who covers George W. Bush for the Dallas Morning News. Our roundtable next on Meet the Press.
Meet the Press is sponsored by the CPA. Never underestimate the value.
Is this not the face of possibility, of objectivity, of integrity? There is another world far from the numbers that you know, where the future of your business lies just beyond your vision, where opportunity dances at the edge of your understanding. All of this can I see. What can you see?
The CPA. You see numbers, we see opportunities.
We're looking at air travel with a new sense of possibility. Rising as imagination.
The painter Degas often lit his subjects with a glow from a window. Renoir used dappled sunshine. Toulouse-Lautrec, the flicker of gas lamps. But when leading museums need to light a Degas, a Renoir, or a Lautrec, they choose revolutionary GE halogen bulbs. These bulbs make any room look its best, whether it's home to a Renoir or something equally priceless.
The color of trust. One of the colors between the colors, created by Canon. Canon Laser Color. Its only competition is reality.
Businesses trust us to deliver more packages than ever in 2 to 3 days. Priority Mail.
Businesses trust us to deliver more packages than ever to every address and post office box in the U.S. Priority Mail.
Businesses trust us to deliver more packages than ever for a very low price. Just $3.20. Priority Mail.
So, what's your priority?
Welcome back. It's that season again, guys. The 2000 race is off and running. Let's run through some polls very quickly. This is the Republican primary horse race. George W. Bush at 36, Elizabeth Dole 26, Dan Quayle, John McCain, Steve Forrest, Pat Buchanan, Lamar Alexander. The frontrunner, George W. Bush, matched against Al Gore, a commanding 21% lead. It's only March of '99. Then, who would you consider voting for? George W. Bush, 72%, still very much an open mind towards him. Elizabeth Dole, 64%. Al Gore, 52%. Half the country has pretty much decided that they would not vote for Al Gore under any circumstance, but again, that could change. Wayne Slater, down there in Austin, George W. Bush announcing today an exploratory committee considering running for president. Do you believe that he has made up his mind to go all the way and eventually formally announce for the presidency?
Oh, I think there's little doubt in that. I think most people around him understand that he's moving forward. He intends to announce at some point. The only thing that would stop him from announcing is that if this Bush boomlet, didn't go anywhere. He said as much earlier this week. If he hears a big yawn out there, then he probably wouldn't go forward. But all expectations are that he will.
What does he attribute this boomlet to? His name, Bush, or the fact that he has been a good governor of Texas?
You know, he's a smart guy, and he knows that his name is what's put him at the top in terms of a lot of polls. He knows that his record as governor isn't widely known by a lot of people who say that they want to vote for him. These people who are showing up almost daily, these blue suits in the buses from legislatures and money people, don't know everything about his record. In fact, at the mansion, he has to explain his record to these people. They're there because they think he's a guy who can win. And one reason he can win, they think, is because of his name.
When he hears Lamar Alexander describe compassionate conservative as weasel words, how does he react?
Privately, not very well. Publicly, we have to understand, this is a guy who his instinct is not to attack. He didn't attack Ann Richards in '94, in part because she was a woman. He didn't attack his last opponent in the race last year, in part because he was so far ahead. But his instinct is not to publicly attack. It's going to be difficult for this guy to attack somebody or the policies of some other opponent in a national race. That's not instinctively the kind of guy he is.
Wayne Slater, every time there is a mention of George W. Bush for president, invariably in the same article there'll be a comment from him that 20 or 30 years ago I had youthful indiscretions, but I'm not going to talk about them because I'll set the wrong example. But he went a little bit further the other day and said, there is nothing in my past which would disqualify me from being president. How big of a concern is the so-called character issue for George W. Bush, or is this much to do about nothing?
I think it is a concern. I think it's a concern, but I don't think he thinks that it's something that would knock him out of any presidential race. I think he's telling the truth when he says that there's nothing in his past would preclude him from becoming president of the United States. At the same time, he's been through this before with his father. He knows what the scrutiny of a national campaign is going to mean. Something happened in the past. We don't know what it is. It may be very minor. I've asked him questions. The issue of the day, of course, this year is marital fidelity. He'll answer flat out, I have been faithful to my wife. I have not cheated on my wife. But when you ask him anything else, drugs, something with alcohol, or frankly, anything else in his past, he won't answer. He always falls back on the pat answer, I'm not going to catalog my youthful indiscretions. He's concerned that this is the kind of thing that will come out in the campaign. But I don't think he's concerned that whatever comes out will preclude him from becoming president.
Fred Barnes, 2000, how's it look to you?
Well, certainly George Bush is the front runner, no question about that. And the polls are so good, there are even some better ones than the ones you showed, Tim. I think they can be a problem for him. One, if the polls dip, and two, the way they are now, they will encourage him to run an extraordinary cautious campaign. And if he runs that kind of campaign, he's going to turn out to be another George Romney or Ed Muskie or something like that. He needs to run a campaign in which he's a compassionate conservative, but emphasizes conservative.
David Broder?
I have to disagree a little with my friend Fred. I don't think you can apply the term front runner to anybody until Iowa and New Hampshire have voted, and I don't think the polls today mean diddly. I mean, two simple facts. I think I'm right about this, Wayne. George W. Bush has never run in a Republican primary. He's never had to compete against other Republicans. And second, he has never campaigned in 49 of the 50 states. This is going to be a very competitive Republican race. He may come out of it as the nominee, but all of the names that are, all the parade to Austin, all of the polls today buy him precious little in that campaign.
Fred Barnes, I showed you that 72% of the people said they're open to voting for George Bush, but only 17% say they are firmly committed. They know who he is and what he's done. How much of a difficulty or a problem could that potentially be for Governor Bush?
Well, that is a problem for him. They don't know what he's done in Texas, and I don't think he can run on his Texas record. You know, it's been very easy to be a governor in the 1990s, particularly now when there are these surpluses that practically every governor has that they did little to generate. It's just because the economy's so good. So he can't just say what he did in Texas. He's going to have to come out on all these issues that Lamar Alexander just talked about, capital gains and so on. I think the one issue on which we're going to hear a lot from him is cultural conservatism. You know, he just hired a speechwriter, Mike Gerson, who is a cultural conservative and an evangelical Christian, and someone who wrote Bob Dole's anti-Hollywood speech in 1996. I think we're going to hear a lot. Bush will flesh out this notion he talks about in his speeches about reversing the impact on America of the 1960s.
Wayne Slater, our country is very familiar with former President Bush, but just getting to know his son, George W. Bush, how are they different? How are they alike?
You know, they're very different people. President Bush was much more formal. The son has a bass boat and has a summer house in East Texas on a lake. The father has the summer home, obviously, in Kennebunkport, Maine. Privately or in small groups, Governor Bush is very engaging. He loves to talk to people. He knows your name. He goes out of his way to be very informal. In fact, early on, a couple of years ago, as governor, I think some of his aides were concerned that he was so informal. He was almost like the frat president, you know, in conversation with folks. He's formalized himself a little bit since then. At the same time, he is also different from his father in terms of political philosophy. He's a more conservative guy. I just heard on your show Lamar Alexander talk about, among other things, education and decentralization of education. George Bush did all this as governor of Texas. He also opposes abortion. He supports charter schools and has started that. He supports vouchers for sending kids to private schools. That's a fairly conservative agenda and a fairly conservative record. So it's funny that some of these guys around the country are beating up on him as a moderate.
David Bruder?
He has one asset, I think, that does translate from the Texas experience into national politics. He has accomplished the things that Wayne was just talking about with a Democratic legislature. And the people of this country, if I hear them right, are eager for somebody who will come to Washington and say, I'm not going to fight partisan battles. I'm going to try to get some things done. That is a metaphor that he can carry over from Texas to national politics.
Well, the other thing is, of course, that he won nearly a majority of the Hispanic vote. He won a huge percentage for a Republican of the African-American vote. And Republicans are incredibly desperate in 2000 to win. He looks like the guy who, at least on paper, has the best chance of winning. Their dislike of Bill Clinton is a part of that, and their fear of Al Gore, but also the failure of the Republican Congress to really achieve many of its goals has really left Republicans with one goal in mind, and that's winning the White House in 2000.
Fred Barnes, you know the Christian conservative community well. Would they be tolerant of Governor Bush coming forward saying what I did 20 or 30 years ago and it turned out to be alcohol or drugs or something along those lines? Would they be forgiving?
Well, they will for one reason, I believe, and that is there's an intervening event, and that is that Governor Bush has had a religious awakening. He has, you know, he went off to celebrate his 40th birthday up in Colorado, or so I've been told, woke up the next morning and decided he was not going to drink anymore. He spent some time with Billy Graham and has had a changed life. I think that immunizes him.
David, what standards will the media use in 2000? How important are these kinds of issues?
I think we're going to have to see. But, Tim, I think for somebody who, as a mature person, as Governor Bush says, whatever I did in my foolish years, and I have grown up, I think that person is entitled to a degree of understanding and tolerance from the press.
Are we writing off Al Gore too quickly?
Of course we're writing off Lamar Alexander too quickly, and 8 or 9 others.
Right.
This contest has not begun. Most of the American people, sensibly, have not spent 15 seconds thinking about who they want to be president next year.
Fred Barnes?
Well, no, I wouldn't write off Al Gore at all, but Al Gore is tremendously dependent on Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's popularity. If Clinton's popularity had sunk a year from now in the primaries, when we go to Iowa and New Hampshire and so on, that's going to hurt Al Gore and help Bill Bradley against Al Gore. If in November of 2000 Bill Clinton is very unpopular, which he might be, then that's certainly going to hurt Al Gore. Remember, it was Reagan's popularity in 1988 that so much helped George Bush get elected president as his successor.
And I think Bill Bradley's been vastly underestimated, particularly on a one-on-one race with Al Gore.
Indeed.
Wayne Slater, Pat Buchanan opined the other day that we're going to find out if George W. Bush can take a punch. What do you think of that?
I think George Bush is going to find out whether he can take a punch. I think Pat's right. Bush is, as I said earlier, has been through this before with his father. It was telling the other day when his wife, Laura, said that the year that they spent in the last presidential race where President Bush lost was a miserable year. When she said, I don't like it when they criticize my husband. This is going to be very, very difficult for Bush, but I think he has decided that I understand how tough it's going to be, and I'm going to be able to take the punch.
That has to be the last word. We'll be right back with more of Meet the Press right after this.
Why did you drag me out here?
$4 a square foot is why I dragged you out here.
Sure, it's $4 a square foot. We're in the middle of nowhere.
We're not in the middle of nowhere. How'd you get here?
Airport.
Yeah, airport, highway, telephone.
Internet.
Internet.
Genius.
Well, it's time to go.
Oh, we love having you here.
Oh, we'll be back. It's a great place.
Thanks.
Have you always had this in? No, we ran our own printing company.
This was always our dream for when we retired.
You should have seen it before.
It needed a lot of work. We did it. I don't know if we'd be able to do it. You'd be surprised.
Martin got us investing at T. Rowe Price.
Even helped us work out what we could spend once we retired.
Maybe we ought to think about that.
I think so.
T. Rowe Price, helping people invest with confidence for over 60 years.
The following is a commercial message from the Archer Daniels Midland Company.
Generally, we don't think much about America's biggest business, our largest employer, more than 1/10 of our gross national product. What is it? Our food and agricultural complex. 22 million jobs related to it. Food processing, transportation, financial services. Less than 10% are actual farmers. In early America, almost everyone was a farmer. Washington, Jefferson, on up to today. American farms help fuel the growth of our nation. Now, with their great productivity and sophisticated methods, just over 2 million U.S. farmers feed and feed well 265 million Americans. And they grow enough excess food to make agribusiness the single largest contributor to our balance of trade. Yet, we just take it for granted. Think about it.
David Broder, Fred Barnes, Wayne Slater, Lamar Alexander, thanks again. Start your day tomorrow and today with Katie Couric and Tom Brokaw. Yes, Tom Brokaw on the Today Show. And join Tom again in the evening news, the NBC Nightly News later in the day. That's all for today. We'll be back next week. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Meet the Press has been sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world.
Meet the Press is a presentation of NBC News. More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
Monday, why do so many people fall for this line? You may already be $1 million winner. But where the hell is it? The offer says you don't have to buy anything. But this man spent over...
Brought to you by Burgerville, serving the Northwest since 1961, and Coin 6 News.
Parent-Teacher Hotline, sponsored by Burgerville and Coin 6 News.